If you want to earn yield in crypto, or even just hold stablecoins safely, this is where you should start. In crypto, security isn't optional. It's the foundation of every return you'll ever make. In this video, I'll walk you through how I store my crypto, why I use a hardware wallet, how I think about backups and passphrases, and what I've learned from over a decade of both wins and very painful lessons in this space. Because yield doesn't matter if your funds disappear. I've been in crypto since 2012. I've made a lot, I've lost a lot, and I've even had 6 figures stolen in one bad move. If you're going to invest in stablecoins or DeFi in any serious sort of way, you need to start with one thing: security. Not because I'm paranoid, but because I've seen what happens when you skip it. This is not optional, this is part of the strategy. When people ask me how I earn yield, I always stop them and I say, first, let's talk about how I protect my capital. Because yield doesn't matter if your funds disappear. I'll start here because it's probably one of the most common mistakes I see. When I first started out, I kept a lot of my assets on Coinbase. I actually really like Coinbase. They've done a ton of good for the industry and made crypto accessible to millions of people. But one year, I changed my bank account for other reasons outside of crypto, and then I forgot to update it with Coinbase. They locked my account completely for over a year. No support, no help. I had to go through the institutional side I used for my hedge fund to finally get someone to actually look at my personal stuff. And this was after years of being a loyal customer. That experience reminded me of something that I already knew from the early days. Even the good exchanges hold your assets under their control. They decide when you can and can't move your money. And Coinbase is one of the responsible ones. Think about the others: Mt. Gox, FTX, Celsius. Those weren't bad luck stories. They were just structural failures. Billions of dollars wiped out overnight. Some investors even had their withdrawn funds clawed back later on. So for me, exchanges are tools, not vaults. I use them to move money in and I use them to move money out, but that's pretty much it. Long term, everything else sits under my control. That whole experience really changed how I think about risk. In traditional finance, for example, banks have entire departments dedicated to protecting capital. Fraud detection, insurance, compliance, physical vaults. They exist to safeguard your money. But in crypto, there is no safety net. You are the bank. You're the custodian, the auditor, and the risk manager all in one. And that's both the beauty and the burden of DeFi and crypto. It gives you full control, but it also puts all of the responsibility squarely on your shoulders. That mindset shift, realizing that no one is coming to save you if you mess up, is what makes me take security so seriously. So here's how I think about it. A hot wallet is something like MetaMask, Rainbow, or Phantom. It's like Venmo. It's connected to the internet, it's easy to use, and it makes DeFi fun and simple. But that convenience comes with some exposure. If someone gains access to your computer, installs malware, or tricks you into connecting it to a fake website, that wallet and your funds are at risk. Hot wallets store your seed phrase online, even if it's encrypted, which means that there's still a potential attack surface. A cold wallet, on the other hand, something like a Ledger or a Trezor, keeps that seed phrase offline. The private key never touches the internet, and that is the major difference. How a hardware wallet actually protects you. When I set up my Ledger, it generates the seed phrase on the device itself. Those words never leave the little screen unless I write them down and then confirm them each one by one. So then every time I make a transaction, my software wallet, like MetaMask or Zorion, sends an unsigned transaction to my Ledger. That ledger shows me the details, the amount, the address that I'm interacting with, the blockchain, etc., and then I physically have to confirm it on the device. Until I press that button, nothing happens. That one step, physically verifying and signing offline, has saved me from scams. I've had sites try to trick me into signing fake approvals or claiming transactions, but my Ledger forces me to actually see what's happening before anything gets through. However, this is really, really important. You can still sign a bad transaction. I did so myself, and I did a whole video about this that I'll link to in the show notes. A hardware wallet won't save you if you approve something malicious. But because you have to actually review and then confirm every step, as long as you are paying attention and not rushing through it, that device adds an incredible amount of protection. Plus, when I did sign that bad contract and had my funds taken from me, my wallet was actually still safe. Nobody had breached into the wallet itself because it was a hardware wallet held offline. That's the beauty of hardware wallets. They create a wall between your money and the internet. Now, I still use hot wallets sometimes, but mostly as a sandbox. Sort of where I test new blockchains, check dashboards, or experiment with small amounts that I can afford to lose. But my stablecoin portfolio never touches those hot wallets. And just to be clear, a cold wallet doesn't mean that my money sits idly in some sort of vault. I still interact with DeFi pretty much every day. I lend, I farm, I move funds between protocols. This just adds a few extra steps that make those interactions safer. Those steps do slow me down, but that is kind of the point. It makes it harder to make a mistake, and harder for anyone else to take what's mine. I know it's annoying. The user experience on hot wallets is so good. It's like Venmo for crypto. You can move funds around, swap, or earn yield with a couple of just taps. But like every good form of security, it's supposed to be a little bit annoying. Two-factor authentications, security questions, all of that feels like friction, and it is friction until something actually goes wrong. Remember, this isn't your Instagram account. This is your bank. Treat it that way. Why I don't write my seed phrases on paper. Paper doesn't always last. Water, fire, or even just time. Paper and ink can degrade or smudge, and that's just not something I want to gamble with. So I actually use metal seed backups. Not because the metal itself saves you. That's not what protects your crypto. The hardware wallet does that. The metal backup just makes sure that if the worst happens, like your house burns down, or your device fails, or you're in a flood, your seed phrase actually survives. I engrave my seed phrase on metal and then store it in a separate secure location. This is not fun, and it's definitely not glamorous, but it's one of those quiet disciplines that helps me sleep at night. And if I ever lose or misplace my hardware wallet, I can just buy a new one. I re-enter that seed phrase that I saved, and everything comes right back, just like magic. The same balances, the same accounts, all restored. You could even do the same thing with a software wallet in a pinch, and that's the real power of your seed phrase. It's the master key to everything, and you never, ever, ever share it with anyone. For most of my accounts, I also use what's called a passphrase, what some people call the 25th word, because your seed phrase usually has 24 words. It's just an extra password layered on top of your hardware wallet. Even if someone somehow got my seed phrase, without that passphrase, they'd still have nothing. It's not for everyone, but for me, it's just an extra layer that separates my everyday assets from my long-term holdings, the things I don't really want to touch. You can also add a passphrase or a password to your software wallet. That way, even if someone does get access to your computer or your mobile device, they still couldn't open the wallet without that extra key. Never buy a used hardware wallet. This should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Never buy a used hardware wallet ever. It can be tempting to grab one on eBay or Facebook Marketplace because it's cheaper, but that quote-unquote deal can turn into something incredibly expensive if that device was tampered with or pre-initialized. I'm pretty extreme about this. I actually buy my ledgers in person. I usually walk into something like a Best Buy and I pay cash so there's no digital trace of the purchase. If I do order online, I order directly from the manufacturer and I generally have it shipped to a PO box so it's not my home. Paranoid? Probably, but I'm okay with that. In 2020, Ledger had a database breach hack. The wallets themselves were totally secure, but the customer data wasn't, and thousands of names and personal home addresses ended up on the dark web. So yeah, a little paranoia is healthy in crypto. In this game, cautious beats clever every single time. How I connect to my hardware wallet. This is something a lot of people tend to overthink, but it's actually really simple. I connect my hardware wallet to a software wallet, usually MetaMask or Zorion. You could use Ledger Live, and there are many benefits to that, but honestly, the user experience on wallets like MetaMask and Zorion is just way better. They make it easy to see balances, interact with DeFi, and move around the ecosystem, while my private keys stay completely offline in my hardware wallet. When I confirm a transaction, the hardware wallet signs it offline and then sends back only the signed message. The private keys never leave the device. That gives me the best of both worlds, the convenience and visibility of the software wallet with the safety of offline signing. That's my everyday setup. It's simple, it's secure, and it just works. And if you really want to take security to another level, there's another option worth mentioning called a Gnosis Safe. It's what's called a multi-sig wallet, meaning it requires 2 or more signatures to approve a single transaction. It's often used by funds, DAOs, or public figures who are potential targets, but it can also be a great extra layer of protection for individuals. If you're investing with a partner or a small group, you can set it up so that every single withdrawal or transaction needs the approval from multiple wallets. Even for solo investors, it can be configured so you need 2 confirmations from 2 different devices before funds can move. It's not something I use every day, but I like knowing that it exists. And it's just another security tool, and for anyone who likes building extra walls between themselves and mistakes, it's a good one to know about. And here's just a few other security best practices that I do. The first is I send test transactions. So whenever I'm sending a large amount, whether it's from wallet to wallet or from an exchange to a wallet or whatever I'm doing, I always send a little bit first. Sending those big transactions are scary, and if I accidentally misplace one of the letters or numbers in the wallet address, all that money goes somewhere else that I don't want it to go to. So I always send a little test transaction first of a small amount. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I do it just to be sure. The second is I almost always use a VPN. There are some websites and some DeFi apps that block you if you're using a VPN, but I just pretty much tend to always use it just as a safety tool. I just think it's safer to use a VPN whenever you're doing anything financial online. And lastly is I use a product called Kerberos. Think of it like a antivirus software that is on your computer, so every single time you do a transaction, Kerberos scans that website and it makes sure what you're doing on that website is safe. And if it's not, they actually have insurance up to $30,000. It's just another crypto tool that I use on a daily basis whenever I'm doing transactions on-chain. Not all wallets are equal, and not all are compatible with every single chain. That's one of the reasons why I kind of prefer Ledger. It's not my favorite, but it supports all the major ecosystems I use: Ethereum, Arbitrum, Base, Solana, Avalanche, and so on. Trezor and Keystone, and there's many others that are great, but the integrations that with Ledger just fit into my workflow better. If you're exploring new chains or newer protocols, always just check that your hardware and software wallets are compatible. Nothing's worse than realizing your wallet doesn't recognize the chain you're trying to use and then kind of makes you just want to leave crypto altogether. So what's my take on software wallets? I basically tried most of them. MetaMask is the standard. I don't really love it, but it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Rainbow has an excellent interface, and it's probably the best pure UX on Ethereum. I love it. Phantom is also awesome. Hands down the cleanest wallet on Solana, and they've done an amazing job there. Zorion is probably my personal favorite for analysis. It doesn't always work seamlessly with everything that I'm trying to do, but it shows all of my transactions, my fees, my DeFi positions, NFTs that I own, and it even lets me export my history for records so that if I want to calculate all my fees for a given month, I can do based on customized time periods, all that kind of stuff. It's simple, it's clean, and it works seamlessly with my ledger. Security is constantly improving. We're already seeing wallet designs that support what's called social recovery. This is where you can assign trusted friends or family members to hold partial recovery keys. So if you lose your wallet, your social recovery group, 3 of them for example, can help you restore it. It's not perfect yet, and I personally don't use that, but I think that's where we're headed. More human, less technical, and up to date with the internet. Until then, the approach I take is an old school one. Cold storage, hardware signing, metal backup, and healthy paranoia. It's important to mention that none of this is financial advice. I'm just personally sharing how I think about protecting my capital before earning yield. To me, crypto security is really all about discipline, about asking before every move, if this goes wrong, can I recover? That mindset has kept me in the game through every bull and bear market since 2012. And if you plan to earn steady income from stablecoins, the best thing you can do is to treat your crypto with the same seriousness as your savings or your business cash. If this was helpful, make sure you're subscribed. I post every week about stablecoin investing, earning yield responsibly, and how to protect your capital in DeFi. I also share my own portfolio every single week, the changes I make, the new yield opportunities I'm exploring, and what I'm watching in the markets. And just as a reminder, none of this is financial advice. I'm just sharing how I personally think about risk and how I manage my own capital. Everyone's situation is different, so always do your own research before putting money anywhere. I'm the Stable Lad. Protect first, earn second. See you on the next one.